Hi.
Hi, it's my pleasure to be here. It's really fun to get to talk to smart people like you about things I care about. So it is my absolute pleasure to be here.
You got to set the bar lower, though, Maya. Set the bar lower. You're setting me up to fail here. Because
Okay, it's really fun to talk to average people like you about things I care about.
thank you. I don't know if you heard that expression before that you have your entire life to write your first record, and you have 1 year to write your second one.
Yes, I feel like the pandemic gave you a little more space on that one, but yes, I have heard that expression. You have your whole life to write your first record, and then a year to write your second, and it matters more because they also say this about movies, and it's like your first movie gives you the opportunity to make your second, and if your second is good, you can have a career.
Do you feel that on this record? Like, does this record feel different to you than your first?
For sure. I mean, in part because I meant to make a record. Like on my first record, I think we talked about this when we did, but like I didn't mean to make a record. I meant to sort of just start writing songs again, which I hadn't done since I was 15 or 16. And I sought the counsel of the right, wrong person to do that because Jesse Harris, when I made my first record, was so encouraging of me and so kind of has this very light touch about making records, making music. And it's sort of like, let's just do it. Like, that was always his thing. He was sort of like, we wrote a song, let's just record it. Like, we wrote 5 songs, let's play a show. We wrote 12 songs, let's make a record. And that was sort of his ethos of lightness that made me feel like, okay. And then it was only in kind of after that, and after that went okay, and was such a wonderful, educational, collaborative, friend making, homey experience that I was like, oh, I want this to be a part of my life. And uh and then all the pieces, it seemed like it brought me together, and that like it brought me as a writer into the mix. It brought me as a person with visual ideas, making videos and doing album art, and as a performer into the mix. And so it felt very connective to me. And then I wanted to make another record. And there's still something haphazard about the way that Moss came together, but I definitely meant to make a whole record. And so that's one of the biggest differences.
So what you're saying is that in the beginning of the music journey for you, it was you would write 3 or 4 songs. Oh, well, I got 3 or 4 songs. Let's put them down somewhere. You could write enough songs to be a record. Oh, let's make a record. There wasn't this great intentionality about I'm going to be a recording artist who makes a record. And on this one, given the success of that first record, you know what? Let me change that. Given the fulfillment you got from that first record, you decide that this is something that you want to do and something that you're more intentional about.
Yes, exactly. And I think that I love that word switch decision from success to fulfillment, because that's definitely, I think, the privilege of making music in my position is that it's a love project for me. It's an affair, not a marriage.
What's your position?
What?
What's your position?
That I have another career. That I'm an actor. That I'm also more educated as an actor than I am as a musician or a musical person. I studied it, and I continue to, and I know all the lingo, and I know not all, but I know more of the secrets and the tricks of the trade. And in music, I'm very beginner's mind, and I love getting to learn from my collaborators and my friends, and I love the way that it fits into my life, but I don't have like a ferocious ambition in the same way that I have like ferocious ambition in other parts of my life.
You have a ferocious ambition around acting, but you don't have a ferocious ambition around music.
No, I'm open to whatever happens with it, and I love making it, but I like that it's a project for me where I don't have to think about I don't know, in my acting, sometimes I'll think thoughts like, I don't want to make another high school movie. I want to make a grown-up movie, or, oh, I've done a lot of comedy. I'd like to show that I can be serious, or I've done, I can be strategic about it. And I'm trying not to be strategic in my music. I'm trying to just be heartfelt.
There's a difference between strategic and heartfelt, and like not wanting to be strategic and not wanting to be intentional. I want to play a song that I think exemplifies that. Take a listen to this.
It's tactless, it's a test, it's just a rest, it's just a rest.
It's my guest, the singer, songwriter, actor, Maya Hawke. By the way, good points to Canada there, having a French-sounding name in a song.
Oh,
there.
thank you.
But now I know the story a little bit about the painting that inspired, or it was part of the motivation. Can you tell it?
Yeah, there's a painting at the Met called Therese Dreaming, and it's by Balthus. And I loved this painting when I was a kid very, very much, because I would go to the Met all the time, almost every weekend. And in most paintings, I couldn't see myself. It's these big ball gowns, these kind of frou-frou, Fragonard, or cold portraits.
What does Fragonard mean?
It's like a period of time, like Rococo. Like
oh yeah,
the kind of all that kind of froofy.
Yeah,
it's when they really
I would be wearing like a thing around my neck, like a big.
You would be. You kind of look like you could be in one of those paintings wearing something around your neck.
I'm going to take it as a compliment. Okay, so you go to the Met and you see this painting that's not that you sort of see yourself in. How do you see yourself in it?
I see this young girl who's not self-conscious, not dressed up, not aware of being viewed. From what I can tell, and is clearly in her own head daydreaming. And I, like a child would, and the way that a child, like, you don't think about the writers of Scooby-Doo when you're watching Scooby-Doo, like Scooby and the gang feel like real people that you might have to call when you're in trouble. And so I didn't think about the painter of Therese or the model or the situation that occurred to create that artwork. I just thought about that character and what she meant to me. And then when I was older, I heard that there was a controversy around the painting and that people were thinking about the maker and the context. And
what was the controversy?
That she's positioned sexually. And that she has like a blood stain on her underwear.
Yeah. And
she's positioned sexually, and she's a prepubescent girl.
Yeah.
And just to be clear for our listeners, she's not like Princess Leia in Jabba the Hutt. She just has her legs spread open.
Yeah. And
she's not like looking at the viewer. You can just kind of vaguely see the side of her underwear.
Yeah.
And the argument was that that's a prepubescent girl and that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I'm not critical of that argument, nor do I think that the painting shouldn't be in the Met anymore. I feel neutral.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm more interested to hear, like, so you when you realize that there's this criticism of you're not thinking of the painter when you see it as a kid.
Exactly. And then I realized there's this criticism, and I feel protective of Therese and my desire for her to get to stay in the Met and like exist, and to have her identity not be about her viewers or her creator, to have her identity be about her. And I felt very inspired by that intellectually, and it felt connected to me, to the way in which when we're kids, we have this like freedom and we don't suck in our gut and we let ourselves be ourselves. And then as we go through puberty, kind of the gaze of society turns its eyes on us and says, like, you should be ashamed of your body. You should cover up. You should not sit like that. You should not move like that, whatever it is. And that affected me and made me want to write this song.
Well, I mean, can I talk about that in the context of the video for that, right? So I'm going to do my best to describe the video for Therese and I'm actually going to do my best to describe it for public radio. But we see a group of young people sort of having sex in the forest. It's shot with beautiful. It's shot beautifully, quite intimately. They're interrupted and arrested by police. And, you know, when we were watching that video here, I think it's very clear we saw a lot of, you know, bravery, of love, of intimacy, of unabashed queerness. And then also when you said to me just then, I responded to, I felt protective of Therese intellectually. What I wanted to ask was, did you also relate to it personally? The idea of that gaze shifting as well, and you know?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where all of a sudden it started to feel personal to me, and feel like there, obviously context is a powerful tool to understand yourself, other people, and the world. But sometimes when you look at the context of a person, you stop looking at their humanity, and their individuality. And it also felt kind of crucially a part of the way in which, like, women and girls, to which I am one of those kinds of people, are so intensely sexualized as they go through puberty and grow up. And so their sexuality is taken from them. And it's not you're self-motivated. It's not I want. It becomes, what does the world want from you? What do boys want from you?
Yeah.
And that becomes the viewpoint with which you view your sexuality for a long time, until you like kind of find the right partner, the right situation, the right friends, and break all that down and kind of build up from scratch, versus kind of getting to have a positive first go of the thing.
Is the video related to that?
Of course. I mean, the video is, the premise of the video is about kind of wanting as adults to rebuild that sense of childhood exploration and freedom, and how deeply, like, the police are both literal police, but they're also kind of more the mind police. And how society and thought and culture kind of really deeply doesn't want us to be little kids exploring our belly buttons in the forest.
I want to be really intentional about what I ask here. So you were just talking to me a little bit about what happens when others take your individuality from you by looping you into something that's bigger, right? I need to say here who your parents are. Your parents are Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. By the way, I just listened to a great podcast with your grandfather the other day.
Oh, cool. Yeah, he's really smart.
I could talk to you about that and a whole other interview about that. Great mindfulness, meditation, Buddhist scholar, your grandfather. Remind me his name?
Robert Thurman.
Robert Thurman. So back to what I was saying. When context is robbed of you and your individuality isn't allowed to shine, you talked about that in sort of like a collective, what can happen to women, what can happen to women identifying people, what can happen to people, right? You are writing about your parents in that song. And you can't just write about your parents in the way that other people can without that context.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that people know about me, or think they know about me, before I open my mouth and start speaking. And that has incredible advantages to it. And it also has complications. I mean, for example, I read like an Us Weekly headline yesterday about that song, where they were like, Maya Hawke indicates that her parents got divorced in song Driver. And I was like, Us Weekly? From the time that I was 7 to the time that I was 15, you wrote nonstop about my parents' divorce. And I'm indicating, like, they got divorced, and you talked about it for years, and I'm allowed to write about it too. Like, and I think that that's, you know, and I knew what I was doing writing those lyrics, though when they came out of my pen, it was just the feeling. It was just the personal life. But putting them on the record, I knew what I was doing. And it's because I knew people would be like, oh, I know who her mom and dad is. She says mom and dad. And those are people I know too. Ha, ha. And and but they're also my mom and dad, and that song is very vulnerable and personal, and even in the context and the way in which the context has impacted my life is vulnerable and personal. And there's a limit to what I can talk about my childhood and my personal life, because I'm not the only public player. There are other public players, and that's their privacy as well. And so I don't know, it's threading a needle, I guess.
It is threading a needle. I love what you said there is hitting me, that because I thought you were going to end at, there's a limit to how much I can talk about this because I'm a public player, and I have a private life and a public life. I thought you were going to end it there, but to say that like actually everybody involved has a public life and a private life.
Yeah, and that is complicated because I'll watch sometimes like people go on talk shows and talk about their childhoods, and no one knows who they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so there's a level of freedom there where you get to decide how personal you want to be.
Yeah.
But for me, even for example, my dad went on a talk show the day after the Therese music video came out.
Yeah.
And they asked him about it. And it's funny because they asked him about it being like, ooh, we're going to make you uncomfortable. We're going to ask you about this art that your daughter made that like a dad isn't supposed to think is good or isn't supposed to like. And my dad's really proud of me.
Yeah, he is.
But of course it's all complicated and layered and personal. And so, his response to my art isn't just for us together. It all of a sudden is for the world. And that is all interesting. It's like, I don't have anything smarter to say about it other than that it's a puzzle that is not that many, there aren't that many books about how to deal with it because it's a slightly rarefied problem.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain used to say that there's no book about how to be famous. When I showed my mom my record, she can just tell me what she thinks about it. My mom doesn't have to think about what she's going to tell Us Weekly she thinks about it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like, yes, I love it. It is perfect.
That's a solid impression of my mom, by the way.
My daughter is expressing herself.
Great impression of my mom, but she actually kind of sounds like that. But even you, I mean, like, it's not even like the context being robbed from you because of who your folks are. There's also that like you're part of this massive thing. Like Stranger Things is sort of like on its own bigger.
It's one of the great things about Stranger Things is that it's, for me, other than that, I love my character, love being on the show, love my collaborators and castmates, is that the muscle of that show is so big that it kind of, I don't know, it's a 1-2 punch to the famous parent thing. Because all of a sudden I've got 2 asterisks before my name instead of 1. And I think the more I get, the less weight any individual one will hold.
Let me make sure I understand that. You could be Maya Hawke, daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. Or you could just be Maya Hawke, by the way. And you can also be Maya Hawke. But Stranger Things allows you to be both Maya Hawke, daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, and like Maya Hawke of the massive, huge Stranger Things.
Yes. And if you read any article about me, you will see that is usually the first paragraph. And I think the longer that first paragraph has to get, the closer it'll be just Maya Hawke.
That's beautiful, Maya.
Thanks.
Can I take a right turn before we have to go?
Of course, please.
I just wanted to ask about, I'm really interested in the Leonard Bernstein, right? Bernstein? I'm interested in the Leonard Bernstein movie coming out, Maestro. Bradley Cooper's making it. You play Bernstein's daughter? Jamie Bernstein, yeah. Bernstein, one of them. Can you tell me something about that? Not about the pronunciation, something about the movie. I'm really interested. I once watched the documentary on the music of West Side Story alone. Like, I find him really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think Bradley is really amazing and really the right person to be making this project and has been working on it for so long. And that I think it's a study
on a life in the arts, and it's a study on the life of a genius, and it's the study on the way that an individual who is a genius reverberates energetically through the life of their loved ones in ways that are both positive and negative, and the compromises people have to make to support that person, and whether or not those compromises are the right thing to do or not. And I think the movie is going to be very, very beautiful, and I'm very honored to be a part of it.
It's a shame that you don't know anything about that.
It is a shame. It is a shame.
It's a shame.
I had to do a lot of reading, a lot of prep.
It's a shame you don't have any experience with the.
I know Jamie Bernstein wrote a book called Famous Father Girl, and I was like, okay, I'll play this part.
At the beginning, when you said, I have this drive, what's the word you used? Like this hunger, this driven hunger, I think you said, for acting, and you're able to see music.
I said ferocious ambition.
Ferocious ambition. That's what it was around acting, and not necessarily. Sorry, and the music is entering your life in a really interesting way, and you're able to approach it from more of a beginner's mind. But it gets harder as the things get bigger. Like, it's easier to make a debut record when you're starting out as an actor. It's harder to be an established actor and make established records. Like, do you see, is something pulling you one way? Are you feeling pulled more one way than another?
No, I'm excited that the tides are rising and that there are things pulling me in all directions. I love art and stuff. And for me, the source of where the energy to build a character comes from, where the energy to write a song comes from, the feeling of being backstage, at a play, on set, at rehearsal, in the studio, backstage at a show, before going on, all that feeling, that collaborative effort, that like a bunch of crazy lunatics coming together in a room and going, let's make something. That's the feeling that keeps me alive. And that's the feeling that makes my heart pound. And that's why I want to do all this stuff. And I'm happy to go wherever the wind blows me, as long as I get to touch that feeling every now and then. You're
telling me it's one bucket of water, you're just using different ladles.
Yeah.
That's really lovely. Maya, I always love talking to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I love talking to you too. You're the best.
You're the best. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. Don't actually get out of here. My guest was actor, model, and songwriter Maya Hawke. Her new album, Moss, is out everywhere now.